of it now. You're going on a date with a lovely person, and she takes you to a magical night of seeing a play, and then you go to a gallery, and then after that you go to a restaurant where piano music is playing. The evening draws to a close, and thanks to the art that you saw and experienced, you two have grown closer. What happens when those moments become a rarity? It's slowly becoming a problem today. Schools have cut so many of their art programs over the years, and money has instead been put into things like sports and testing. So much so that most public schools have lost 2, if not 3, of their art classes. Public schools have been rapidly closing art programs and cutting off options for students over the years. But by voting, you can help sway the education board in your hometown and get art programs back. Being a victim of this budget cutting in the arts and public education, I can safely say that it has become an ever-present issue and only becomes bigger as the years go on. I have also researched through nonprofit organizations, books, and articles to find that my experience has not been a New Mexico-only deal. It is a nationwide issue that is changing the way that school boards decide to use their money. In the next few minutes, we will discuss how art students every year have been diminished and told through budget cuts that their passions do not matter as much as other students, who focus more on sports. How has this hurt both physically and mentally these students? And by being an active community member and voting, that you and a change in the community can change the view of the school boards. The ratio of preference over athletics over arts causes students to try and force themselves into an ideal that their school wants them to be. An article on Science Direct explains that families and schools forcing children to change has caused a loss of identity and a lack of stability in who they are. Schools that are enforcing favoritism on a specific program may cause students to get lost in the mix. Busted Coverage explains how in a year a school district will pump about $1 to $100 billion a year into their sports programs, while $1.3 million in general public school. That tells a student that if they are into the arts, their interests are not important. In fact, it causes something called adolescent crises. You may be wondering what this means and why it matters and who this all impacts, but there's a lot to unpack with it. So allow me to explain. Act for Youth explains that a child will go through phases to figure out who they are, but issues occur when they are not allowed to flow and change organically. These changes are adolescence crises. Everything goes through them, but what we found is that when a school or family doesn't allow the children to change, it causes extreme adolescence crisis. This is where the student does not only question who they are, but then questions their self-worth, later leading to rather dangerous results. When a student or child hits these issues, they can make drastic decisions in response. When a student feels that they do not fit in the world, and in this case, their world is high school, they will question more than who they are and fall into mental illness. It becomes even more of an issue when students' parents develop a similar mentality. As a school creates a blatant idea of what is successful, especially if they're uneducated, their parents will expect that level of excellence in their children. In some cases, this is good. Schools wanting their kids to do well on an important test, such as the SAT or ACT, will allow a parent to know that it is important for their children's future. It becomes a problem when the level of excellence is measured on something like sports. A parent will expect their child to be athletic if the school expects it. The reason this is so problematic is with something like a program is that doesn't allow those phases to happen naturally. Instead, a student is forced into a phase rather than developing, and it harms the identities a person has. Now you may be asking, identities? We have more than one? I can help you understand. We all have 2 identities, the social and the self-identity. Social is the identity you have away from your home, and the other self is when you are comfortable with yourself and typically friends and family. By forcing the identity onto something a parent or a school wants, that hurts the student even more and causes that identity crisis to set in, because now both identity, the social and the self-identity, is being forced into something they are not. With mental health being addressed, how about we talk about physical? At Your Own Risk explains how the sport being a priority, winning becomes priority. This means that students are pushed past their limits, so much so that they get hurt. In fact, more than 90% of children a part of high school sports teams will be hurt where they cannot play anymore, nor will they be able to do and go about their life regularly without pain. Now, dear watcher, understand that this is why it's so detrimental. You may want to fix this problem. There are a few ways to fix this and keep art programs in schools. Be to talk to the school board and bring up issues by writing letters and protesting when more budget cuts are made to art programs. By being an active community member, your voice can be heard, and art programs will be helped if you speak up for them. Another way that you can fix it is as a parent, you allow your kids to try things and not create similar mentalities to schools. The past few minutes, we have gone over how art students every year have been diminished and told through budget cuts that their passions do not matter as much as other students who focus more on sports, how that hurts a student in both physically and mentally, and lastly, how you can help fix it. Schools have been rapidly closing art programs and cutting off the options for students for years. But by voting, you can help sway the education board in your hometown and get art programs back. So if you want to keep the arts in the world, continue to see musicals, art shows, and ballets, we need to make sure that more art programs do not get shut down. Otherwise, those budget cuts are going to drive all of the geniuses who create them out. Thank you. Have a good day.